Hi, thank you so much for joining us. I am Lauren Kay Wyatt. I'm the founder of Love Renegades and have a very special treat for you today. We are going to dive deep into sacrifice and the illusion of sacrifice as love in our relationships. That means we're going to dive deep into the law of sacrifice, and to help us do that, I have a very special guest with me. This woman is Katie Weiner, and she's one of my favorite people, and she was an amazing client, and I got to see her break the law of sacrifice. Katie, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead and read Katie's bio so that you can just really feel and understand how awesome she is. So Katie is a licensed therapist, coach, and corporate trainer in Austin, Texas. She sees therapy and coaching clients in her private practice. Katie also designs programs for local businesses interested in cultivating or maintaining a culture of balance and wellness. She specializes in women's mental health, empowerment, self-esteem, and boundaries. Katie has devoted herself deeply to studying the teachings of Byron Katie, Nicole Dedon, Janine Roth, and Brene Brown. Amazing, amazing people. I know a couple of those. She believes in putting our wellness and balance as first priority and being of service to our world from a place of wholeness. Katie is an avid writer, hiker, and yoga practitioner. Her first book is currently in editing, and she hopes to have it published in 2020. Katie, I really hope you have that published in 2020 as well. I won't reveal the content unless you want to, but super, I'm excited. I am ready. It's going to be good. So as I was saying before, I got to see Katie break the law of sacrifice. And in case you don't know what the laws of love are, or you are interested in finding out more, I'm just going to briefly tell you what this is. Since working with clients since 2012, I began to notice some patterns that clients would get into, these patterns that really separated them from love. And I began to see how these patterns were things that in a lot of circles, they were just accepted as truth, as absolutes. And in a lot of, in different societies, cultures, these are the patterns that kept people in relationships that did not bring them that connection and love and joy, and in dead-end jobs. And I got to see people break through these patterns, which I ended up calling the laws of love. And as Love Renegades, we want to break the laws of love. So one of these laws of love is the law of sacrifice. And the law of sacrifice is kind of about putting everyone ahead of you. It is the illusion that to sacrifice is to love, which could kind of be true in some cases, but definitely not in this case. And it also goes into other areas like obligation and all sorts of fun things that we're going to talk to Katie about, because she's a very empowering person, and she really, really did a lot of healing in this area. So, which leads me into the first question. Katie, could you please describe your romantic life and a bit about your professional life before you became a Love Renegade? And what that means is before you started working with me.
Yes. It's a fascinating story. I remembering back to that time, I opened up to coaching at a pivotal point in my life. I think that you remember that. And romantically, basically what I was doing at that time was I was ending the last chapter of the last relationship, where I did sacrifice a lot of my energy, mostly a lot of my standards, and essentially my safety. It was not an unsafe relationship in any ways that others would pick up on, but it was just the wrong fit for me. And for some reason in my mind, in my relationships with that one and all in the past, I thought that I needed to sacrifice a lot of my preferences, a lot of my standards, a lot of my needs in a relationship in order to have what I wanted, that what I needed and what I wanted truly wasn't going to be available to me. So that what I would need to do is compromise, and put myself in a situation with a person or any sort of relationship, not necessarily romantic, could be a roommate, could be a friendship, but with a person, what I came to call it as having an unworkable relationship with me. It's an unworkable relationship. I can't get what I need, they can't get what they need, or it just takes an exponential amount of energy to be in it and for both people to be okay. So romantically, I was starting on the pathway of not doing that anymore, trying to figure out, is there another option? Is there a way that I can have what I need and not be alone, or, make money, the things that I didn't think were possible.
Wow. Wow. And professionally, would you say there's a difference?
Yeah, big time. Professionally, it did feel a little bit different. I think my level of worthiness, or my level of abundance, like a capacity for abundance, was quite small. And so I had sort of a very limited view of what I could have, what I could do, what I could make, what I could create. And at that time, I would say that I was playing small. I was working really hard, but I wasn't necessarily making my worth, I wasn't earning my worth. And I didn't know how to nurture my business the way that it needed to. I was really good at putting my attention on other things besides the mildly uncomfortable tasks of building my business.
Yeah. And as I listen to you, I noticed that the themes that you experienced in your romantic life were similar to what you experienced professionally, because you weren't it sounds like, yeah, like there was compromising. It was putting your attention on other things, like maybe on your partner and what your partner wanted, or the different, tasks in your business where, like you said, you were working so hard. There was a lot of output happening, but it sounds like there was a disconnect on receiving.
Big time.
And that's frustrating, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a major energy drain.
Wow. Which kind of leads me into my next question. In these two areas, and anywhere else that you'd like to share about, how did the themes of sacrifice, obligation, burnout, and resentment play out for you?
Oh boy.
I know, what a question. There's like 70 questions in that one.
The thing that popped in first is the idea of energy, the way that I used my energy. And what I see now that I did not see at the time was that I used my energy on, like output. I used my energy on things that weren't going to generate. It wasn't like going to be a generative thing. It was just an output, and then the place where it would go may or may not use that in a way where I will end up feeling a sense of, energetic receiving energy myself. And unworkable relationships was a major energy drain for me, where I would put a lot of energy and I literally would either get none back, or I would just feel like it was being depleted out of me.
Can you give an example of what an unworkable relationship is? Because there might be somebody listening to this who's trying to talk themselves into being okay with whatever's happening.
Yeah, they've taken a lot of different forms in my life over the years, but generally unworkability means that two people, like, I don't mix with the other person. We either don't get along, or we have issues that have us in constant or chronic conflict. We don't share the same truth. So it's like, I can tell them what I think about something. They don't hear me because they don't, it's BS to them. And it's not because I'm right and they're wrong. It's because we literally live on different planets, and we're not going to be able to be, like, for me, in my inner circle. I don't want for somebody to be in my inner circle who can't understand where I'm coming from, or they have such challenges. For me, it takes this form a lot. They have such challenges with relationships, or with compromise, or with control, that we literally can't function. So like a roommate, a partner, a good friend, or I spent a long time living in a community house and community living quarters where there's a lot of closeness. And when those people would be in my inner circle in those situations, it's a regular bother. When I worked in workplaces too, I worked for myself for the past 7 years or so. But before that, it also showed up in the workplace. There would be certain people who either I'm allergic to them, or we're allergic to each other. We just can't make it work.
You have such like a diplomatic and higher viewpoint to see this dynamic. What I noticed happening through our interactions and just hearing like your side of things, and because I know how much, like, as you mentioned, truth, like there's like a different truth. They think it's BS. Knowing how much you value truth and how that's like a core part of who you are, combining that with this desire that you have to be of service and to help, like, okay, you're a coach, you're a therapist. These are like some really like deep yearnings that you have, and then having that play out with roommates, the house, the romantic partners, the colleagues. What I was going to say, I got a little off track, was it sounded like, and I'm not a therapist like you, but I read, it sounded like there was like some gaslighting going on, like telling you your truth is bullshit. And it's like telling somebody that their truth is bullshit. Like, how do you, like, there's no, like, you don't have to agree, but can we say that there are different ways?
Yeah, it's a difficult spot. And I think the very reason why law of sacrifice is a difficult law to break for me is that I try to make things work. I'll try to make things work, or I'll try to make interactions go when it's just not going to go. It's not a person I'm going to get along with. It's not a person I'm going to level with. It's not a person that I can that I can be vulnerable with, or put my heart in their hands, essentially.
This just came in as you were talking. So you know how like a lot of times, and you do like so much personal development and like all the teachings that you've like really like devoted yourself to learning and practicing. Like we're told to be, I'm genuinely curious. Like I'm like whatever expert hat I thought I was wearing, I'm like, I want to just like put this away and ask you. Like we're taught to be vulnerable, that's a way to like connect and like, you know, the Brene Brown power of vulnerability. Love it. However, I don't think, and again, this is like my opinion, and this is how I think that the law of sacrifice can really like mess somebody up and cause all sorts of like internal conflict, funkiness, is that there are certain people that we have no business being vulnerable with, because it's like it doesn't, like it would be great if this could be applied to like, we're like, oh, if I'm just like reasonable or vulnerable or authentic, then this person is going to, you know, have the empathy that I have, or they're going to understand me. And then someone like you, who it sounds like you are a magnet for, you know, these other personalities or whatever, it could be like a really like, I think, disillusioning thing to go through. So that's just what I see. I'd love to hear what your response is to that.
I agree. And that's something I thought of. Two metaphors. While I thought of one like picture that came into my mind is of like a dog or a cat. They like, when they're trying to be submissive, they put their belly up in the air and they basically say, I'm bottoming to you. You're in charge. So there's not the aggressive confrontation doesn't happen. They put their belly up and they're like,
yeah,
I'm not gonna hurt you. And it's a wonderful pose to be in. But if you're with a person who's gonna jab you in the belly, then you don't want to do that. And for me, I'm a highly sensitive being, and I'm highly empathic. And I've had to learn through trial and error that certain people they're not bad people, but it's like a bull running through a china shop, and I'm the china shop. So learning how to feel people, especially on the front end, like when we're meeting, and see who people really are and how they really operate, is very important. It tells me whether they should be in my inner circle or my outer circle, or not anywhere near me. And yeah, I think that some people we shouldn't be interacting. It's not because anyone's wrong. It's because we're just two creatures that are not meant to interact. It's like that the way that nature designed us has us be not compatible.
Yes, because if you continue to try to engage with those people, those different themes that come with the law of sacrifice, like that, like feeling depleted, feeling burnt out, the resentment, the frustration, the lack of boundaries, you know, like that can come up. So is there anything more you want to say about, because I did kind of cut you off when I asked you like that really long question about how those themes showed up.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else you'd like to say about that?
I don't think so. That felt like a pretty complete statement of what was going on.
I think so too. And I wanted to just check in case there was something else you're like, but I really wanted to share this. And you just decided to like ask me these other questions and kind of get on a soapbox, but not really. But anyway, so, yeah, I love I love helping people set boundaries and stand up for themselves and saying like, you know what, this isn't okay. Like, I'm not going to engage in this pattern anymore. And right now, Katie, you sound and you are like a very aware person, and you see the situation so clearly. Like, you're very, very good at that. But with this next question, I want to ask you, like, I want to know what the catalyst was, and I'd love to know how it played out, because it doesn't, like, right now it sounds like really, because you have like perspective, like this happened like several months ago. Like, you're like, okay, yeah, like we just weren't vibing, different planes. We don't have to engage. But if you could speak to that, like the catalyst, and then what the unfolding was like for you.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a painful process getting out of my last romantic relationship. I fell very hard, and I also very frequently got hurt and felt unsafe in the relationship. And I think that I was starting to feel almost sick in the relationship. That's what it took for me to actually get myself out of it and be ready to leave it. That's how strong the law of sacrifice commitment was for me. And I was clear at that point. I had tried everything that I could in that relationship to make it workable, and it just wasn't going to be. So when I ended the relationship, little by little, it started becoming clearer and clearer just how far I had strayed from the place where I'm respecting myself and the place where I'm honoring myself, which can happen in relationship, but big time happens for me in relationships. That's a definite regular dynamic that I get into. So it was through our first session when you helped me see that I'm power and I'm truth, and that there's just something about hearing from somebody tell you, I understand you, and this is who you are. Like, this is who you are. And from there, I was able to see all these things that were not in alignment with who I am and what I need because of who I am, like the realities of who I am, not who I could be if I worked really, really, really hard on transforming myself.
Gosh.
Yeah.
That's what happens with the law of sacrifice. Like, it's like, I need to work hard to be loved. And I have to do all of these things and, mold myself and conform myself into these different boxes so that I'm loved and so I'm approved of, and all of that stuff. Like, and yes, Katie, you are power and you are truth. And if you want to know a little bit more about what Katie and I are talking about, the way that I love to work with people is, yes, like this is the experience you're having. What would you like to have instead? And let's talk about like what your real gifts are. And like Katie said, like, it's who you are. It's not who you have to, like, who you can be when you grow up. It's who you are, and you can choose to access that. So Katie, it sounded like hearing what your gifts were gave you permission to reconnect with your true principles and to leave that relationship and to clean up these other parts of your life.
Oh boy. Yeah. That was the pathway. That's what had to happen at that point. Once I woke up to it.
Yes, totally. So when you started that process, like, what was like the internal voice like?
Yeah, at that point, toward the beginning of the process, the internal voice was very insecure, and it was very externally focused and trying to find somebody outside of myself to keep me safe, to rescue me, to fix me, because I didn't particularly know how to access that in myself yet. So it was scary at times. I felt alone at times. I'm so glad that I took that time to be by myself in terms of being in a relationship, and I moved into my own place where I really, really I've flourished here and learned how to create safety, source safety from myself and from the divine alone. And those voices have become so much different, so much calmer. But yeah, in the beginning, they wanted me to go backwards, back to all the places that I thought were safety or something, but really weren't. They weren't.
I love how you articulated that experience, because what I saw you do, I saw you reconnect with who you were and to believe in what you could have versus what you had compromised before. And you, Katie, you took such swift action. It was just like a couple conversations that we had. You got your own place, you got set up, and you did find your power from within you, and you really did start to trust yourself and to grow confident and really being the powerful warrior truth teller that you are. Like,
Yeah.
trusting, because one of your gifts is your gift of sight, your intuition, and so sensitive. And it's like, why am I like trying to get all these people to like me and sacrificing myself? Like, it did keep you really small, but once you knew, you really did unleash your power from within.
Yeah. Big time. There's an Alanis Morissette song that I love. It's called Orchid. And there's a line in it where she says, I've been treated like a rose as an orchid, which really means she's finicky. She's not as hardy. She's super sensitive. She has a lot of specific ways that she needs to be cared for. Not like a rose, you just snip, and it blooms every year. The orchid's very different.
Oh, I know. I love seeing orchids. I don't bring them home anymore because I'm not a person who has that. Like, there's a level of responsibility that comes with an orchid. And I love that you see yourself as an orchid and that you're aware of what you need and you know who you don't need to be with.
Exactly.
But I love that metaphor, and I'm going to have to check that song out.
I'll send it to you.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so Katie, how have things changed? Like, I know you left that relationship. I know you did some new stuff, career-wise. You started dating. Like, what's changed from like now as compared to what it was before you took all of these courageous steps?
So much. So much has changed. I've definitely transformed, and it was in a matter of, I think we started our program 8 months ago or something like that. So Wow, that's such a big question. What has changed? I feel like my energy is being used so much differently. I'm using my time and my attention and all my nurturing capabilities on that which is really providing for me, providing income, providing safety, which for me that was a big part of being like learning how to be an adult this past year, being the keeper of myself. And yeah, providing for my life, to grow my life, and being really discerning about what I'm doing and who I am interacting with, and sort of making a commitment to myself that I'm going to treat myself very well, and that I'm going to engage in relationships that are good for me and are good for them, and use a sane amount of my energy. They're interdependent relationships that both give and take my energy. It goes both ways. It's a two-way street. And just with people who are aligned with me, who we live on the same truth paradigm, and we're in the same sort of place in our lives generally. People who feel healthy to me, which is super important. The circle around me when I started the Love Mastery program it didn't look great. It didn't look great. They were not the healthiest people. They weren't the people who brought out the healthiest form of me. And today I'm so selective, and I have the most amazing group of people who are around me, who it's really like night and day. When I have social time, I really feel nourished, and I go home to be with myself and I feel energized. So yeah, the way that I use my energy is so much different. I don't join with people who have serious problems or get into conflicts with me that are not good for me or them. In terms of my work, I feel I've really nourished it. I've nourished my business, nurtured it. I've learned how to put attention on it, like consistent attention. And that was very difficult for me before. It was very uncomfortable. It made me anxious to just be putting attention on me and my, providing for myself financially. So, and exposing myself in terms of marketing, exposing myself to people who might want to pay me and to potential clients. So the way that's changed, it's so different. I'm so much clearer about my worth. I'm so much clearer about how to just tell people this is who I am. And this is the way that you'll likely feel working with me. So if that's what you want, I'm the right person for you. And if it's not, I'm not. Let's just get that out in the open. So my business looks so much different at this point. It feels so much different at this point. It feels like a joy for me to tend to, as opposed to this thing that makes me nervous and feels like an obligation.
Wow. It's amazing because at the beginning of the interview, we talked about self-worth, how your self-worth was like lower. That was my paraphrase of it, I think.
Sure.
And then right now it's like you have really stepped into a new level of worthiness.
Big time.
And self-value, self-love. Though you have set healthy boundaries with yourself on how you will treat yourself and what you will give your energy to. And of course, that dictates how you interact with other people and the people who are fortunate enough to be allowed in your sphere.
Yes. It's an invitation only.
Yes, I helped you to become a diva.
Yeah.
Good. Katie, what advice do you have for for anyone who is struggling with the law of sacrifice?
One of the things, and this is, by the way, one of the things I talk about a lot in my book, is doing what I call retroactive boundary identification, not necessarily setting retroactive boundaries, but identifying boundaries, what our boundaries are after they've been broken. And yeah, so
whoa,
yes,
that's like part of the book.
it's a big part of the book. It's a big part of the book.
That is so amazing. Okay, keep going.
Yes, and I tell my story in it and give examples, lots and lots of examples, because in reflecting on my life, as I did, it's basically a memoir, my book. I found so many places where either I broke my boundaries or somebody else did, but I didn't particularly speak up for them in a way that was going to be heard or that they were enforced. So what I have learned to do is I didn't easily learn how to just set boundaries. I think when in this process, when we don't know what our boundaries even are, what we have to do is feel what it feels like to have them break, and then go back in our minds and say, this is where it broke, this is where my boundary was, and this is where it got broken, and this is what I would have done had I really been honoring and enforcing my boundaries. And so writing what I would say or what I would do in all these different locations helped me connect with myself and helped me to get closer to, in real time, being able to say, no, I'm not okay with this, and speaking up for myself. And then in that way, I'm learning how to cultivate relationships in a way where I can say just from the get-go, this is what's okay with me and this is what's not okay with me. Are we going to be able to do this? Or does this feel okay for both of us to keep moving forward?
Wow. That is so amazing. So I'm really excited because I'm sure people want to like connect with you, and maybe they want to know more about your story. If you could give us the name of your website and then tell us where we can find that video about boundaries that you told me about before we had this conversation.
Yes, absolutely. My website is healingaustintherapy.com. And there it's all about my private practice, about my coaching practice, and about my trainings that I do in the corporate workplace. And then I have a YouTube channel where I've posted a number of videos that are full-length webinars, and many of them are for empowered women. The one that people have loved the most is called Boundaries for Empowered Women. So you just go to my YouTube channel, Katie Weiner, Winer, and I only have maybe 7 videos there. You can click on the boundaries video. It's a picture of a fence, and that is my gift to you. It's great for men too, but I did make it for women, and I think we have a little bit of a different experience when it comes to boundaries. But boundaries are boundaries.
Wow, I'm excited to hear about your YouTube channel and about this video. Katie, is there anything that you would like to share before we wrap up this interview about yourself, the law of sacrifice, anything?
There's one other thing I wanted to say about what I would tell people who are struggling with the law of sacrifice or sacrificing too much in their relationships, and that is to ask yourself if you want to commit yourself to self-love. And it's okay if you're not there. You probably aren't there. Most of us aren't. But all you need to do from there is just plug into your desire to love yourself and take good care of yourself. And as long as you do that, you will be moving in that direction. So be patient with yourself, and know that it is a very difficult, long process, but it is possible to be in a state of unconditional love with ourselves.
That is so beautiful. And thank you so much for that. And Thank you for breaking the law of sacrifice and being a love renegade, and for spending time with me today.
Thank you. Thank you for all of the encouragement, all the diva making guidance that you gave me, just reminding me who I am and what my rights are, what my values are. That hearing that, having that support is so important. It's so valuable. So thank you so much for seeing me and for backing me and for reminding me over and over and over again who I am.
Oh, you are so welcome. I was just thinking about how some people have glam squads, like with divas. You have like a soul glam squad.
Yeah.
Oh, you are so welcome. Thank you so much. And to everybody watching Katie and me, thank you so much for joining us. Again, I'm Lauren Kay Wyatt. I'm the founder of Love Renegades. You can find me on YouTube and at loverenegades.com. Thanks, and bye-bye.